And we need you to. We need you to. We definitely need to set up on different platforms to further this conversation, not just for the month of August, but throughout the year. And this is what I love about the Future Elect platforms is that, yes, we're having this webinar this month, but there are multiple conversations that will continue to happen and have been happening throughout the year and will continue to do so. And you mentioned something so important, Sis Notukela, which is once you are in the space that you're in, having gone through some of the challenges that you faced as individual women and being a member of parliament and being a member, leading in your organization or your foundation, how do you make sure that it doesn't happen to other women? Because that is important. And quite oftentimes you find in spaces where there's a certain, conversation that happens about how we need to empower women. But like you had said, it's a checkbox exercise. It's not necessarily about sustaining the change and making sure that we don't have to, or our kids don't have to have this conversation that we're having on this webinar a couple of years later on. But how do we make sure that we continue and we extend a hand and we're gracious about the platforms we're in and we ensure that we bring along women as we either go up or begin to develop individually? How do we take along and what roles do we individually play to make sure that we're not just on our own achieving the success, but we're bringing along and taking along other women with us? Nobuntu, what do you do in your space as a member of parliament, in your individual spaces? How do you ensure, and what is the conversation that we must have?
So, I mean, as a start, when we started Build One SA, I'd go around the country. We were setting up, and engaging communities, and the women would ask me, "Oh, leader, we need a women's league. We need a women's, we need a women's chapter." And I pushed back on that. I said to the women in our party, please just wait. Because what I've noticed in many other political parties and party politics is that women tend to go and hide in the women's leagues, in the women's chapters. And they find a place that's welcoming and that's easier for them to lead in because the other spaces are too toxic within the party, or, mainstream leadership is toxic. And because I was so committed to making sure that in whatever way we can, we make the space and the party enabling for women to lead. Because I was committed to that, I said to the ladies, I want to see you leading. I want to see you leading in the party. I want to see you leading in the mainstream of the party. I'm not saying we'll never have a women's league, a women's desk. I'm not saying we'll never have it. We will, but maybe give me 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So that you are forced to actually lead, because cream rises to the top. You're leaders. You're already leading in your communities. You're leaders. Cream rises to the top. You will then, kind of be forced to lead in the mainstream of the party and in the main structures of the party in that way. And we've seen that a lot of our ward leaders, some of our regional leaders, they're women. We had women candidates in our top 10 candidates at national. There were more women than men. And that's been important to me, that we make sure that women can lead in our party in the main structures. So that's been the first of it. The second is that I've invited a lot of women into our party, into the space. And I think because women see other women in leadership in the party, they're able to come, and join the party. I had also founded the South African Women's Commission in 2022, just before we established Build One SA. And the Women's Commission was, for me, and still is, an organization where we assemble women to say, what are we doing as women to bring change in our country? And that became a platform where every time women gathered, they really, really wanted to make sure that they were participating in some way. And immediately, Build One SA would become an opportunity for them to do that. Some of the women are in different parties, joined different parties, but that's what that was. That's part of what is my personal contribution. it is the South African Women's Commission is one of my personal contributions to say, let's create a space where women can engage with each other, collaborate, network, find ways to be able to lead in this country and to be able to lead in bringing change to the country as well. And then now in Parliament, I mean, I have, for instance, I'm pioneering the sexual offenders register being made public. That's one of the things that I'm doing in the Trade and Industry Portfolio Committee that I sit in. I am holding to account the department in terms of procurement for women. There's a target of 40% procurement from women-owned businesses, but we're sitting at less than 5%. So I've been meeting with the Commission for Gender Equality. I've written a letter to them, and I am contributing towards interventions that they should have in reviewing whether legislation is working in bringing particularly economic transformation and advancement for women. And I've tabled some interventions which they should consider in making sure that happens. So those are some of the things I'm already doing in Parliament. But I mean, we haven't even met as a Women's Parliament. I think we're only meeting in 2 weeks or in a week's time. But those are some of the things that I've started doing. And, you know, for me, we can't be there, like I said, if representation doesn't benefit women, if it doesn't benefit the rest of South African women, whether in industry, you know, whether it pertains to gender-based violence, whether it pertains to civil society, if it does not benefit women, then, you know, it's pointless and meaningless. And really, we're just ticking boxes.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Sis Notukela?
I have taught even my mentees that we absolutely need to be intentional. So whether you're building structures within the party, they have to have women representation. And we have to create the type of space where women can exist and they can thrive, and be unapologetic about it. So when we have our meetings, you will find in a meeting that there's a mother who's got a child on the lap or whatever. That person is most welcome in our space. We will create the space for that child to be able to play because we want women there and their presence matters. And they can be assisted. So that is within Action SA. Also just pushing for not only women, but all, don't say disadvantaged, but discriminated bodies or minority groups to be represented within the decision-making structures. I have made that my mission since day one. It made me very unpopular. And the other thing is just always being true to your truth. Because we come into spaces with our truth, we know why we are put there. And when it's hard and when there's resistance, as women, we just have to stand and not forget what our truth is. So in terms of the policies that govern us, making sure that they protect the women, they enable and empower women. And then within civil society, have an amazing team that empower, we call it sisterhood. And it's the empowerment of women is critical for us because if you empower a woman, you're empowering a household. They are nurturers, they take care of many others. And that is just who we are. It's not always our immediate family that benefits. So we have what we call it within the NFI sisterhood, which deals with everything from finances, Gone are the days when women thought a man is a financial plan. No, a financial plan is a financial plan. It's not a man. So we help these women to be able to plan their finances, to plan their own futures, to find a space where they can find a sisterhood, they can advise each other how to navigate life. If you have a disability, with a disability, if you're raising a child with a disability, to have an ecosystem of support and love. And also just empowering them, giving them the skills and capacity to pursue the dreams. So I'm very intentional about empowering women. I understand that where I am is a privilege, and I'm intentional in making sure that that privilege is not wasted on me. Because life is very short, and God has put us where we are for a reason. So I make sure that that privilege enables other women to be able to step up and take over from where I'm at.
Absolutely. I attended a TED talk. It was a women's conference last week, Friday. And one of the speakers said, and the audience was all women, obviously. And the speaker said, there isn't a scenario where the world will never want you. So whether you're hard on yourself, whether you feel as though you're adequate or not in that particular position, the world will always want you. And I think for myself, the minute in my political journey, the minute I realized that it wasn't me who was in the wrong space, but people were in the wrong frame of thinking. For me, that was when the switch happened. And I think that is where I became intentional. The provincial team was mostly female, mostly women, and that was intentional. The people who are on the ground organizing for Rise and Science were mostly female. And again, it was an intentional one. I wanted to see more women. And I think for me, my biggest act of resistance was my femininity. And I think I mentioned earlier on in our conversation that being in politics, and I was also the premier candidate leading up to the elections, the only woman who was the premier candidate. So all of the spaces, I was always the only woman in them. And my femininity was an act of resistance. There was absolutely no way where I was going to behave more butch, where I was going to be more vulgar, where I was going to be more disrespectful, to be accepted as a true player in politics. And I knew that the minute I fell for that, I would, one, reaffirm that this was not a space for women. But most importantly, even the woman who would look, whether it is a picture, whether it is a video clip, who would look and see me would feel validated for wanting to dream bigger and would be able to see that it's possible. And this is exactly what the responsibility of being in politics as a woman is. And for me, it was that. And I continue to tell people in spaces that want to conform you to be anything that you're not innately. And it was so beautiful when you said that always remain true to your truth. And I think somebody in the comments said that because it landed. And if I had changed in any way, I would have already lost my fight and my truth. And I think that is so powerful for you to say, Sis Notukela. And of course, we speak about toxicity. We speak about the challenges that we have. I must ask this. How do you remain true to yourself? In saying, Sis Notukela, you must always remain true to your truth. What is the thing that you always do to get back to yourself? What is the thing when it almost feels as if the country is on fire, it is burning? Uyasha. What are the things that you do that bring you back and remind you why you started this, that bring you back to your true self? And just reaffirm that you're actually in the right space, doing the right thing for the right reasons. Sis Nobuntu, let's start with you.
That is such a beautiful question, especially coming out of elections. I realized that campaigning, political campaigning, is something that can really, really steal you from yourself. Because there is a way that people show up in campaigns. I love what you talk about, Nonkululeko, about, how you, even during the campaign, showed up as you, and showed up in your femininity. Campaigning can steal you from yourself. The political space can steal you from yourself. It is not easy. It's easy to be misunderstood. And funny enough, I've found that people are harder on women leaders than they are on men leaders. There are things that men can get away with all the time, but women can't. And women are judged so harshly. When you make an unpopular decision, you are judged more harshly for it than your male counterpart would be, as an example. So it's very, very difficult to start losing yourself. One, start behaving in a way that you're expected to behave, because now you're in politics, and this is what politicians and especially male politicians do. Two, it's easy to lose yourself because politics means that you've got to keep the favor of your constituents. So it's so tempting to not make hard decisions, to not push back against, because you can get the fear that you're going to lose your constituents. And for me, what has kept me, and what I always had to go back to, is that, first of all, I have got a community of people around me who know me and who know me well, and who stay close to it. Some of those women are on that call now, who stay close to me. I think that one of the things that we need, particularly for women leaders in politics, is other women. Is other women who will hold you up, who will hold each other up. For me, it has been those women who've checked in on me, women who pray for me, women who say, what's going on? And sometimes, just as they check in on me, and sometimes I won't respond because I'm so overwhelmed for weeks, but I saw that message. I saw it. And even in just the words they used to speak to me, it kind of brought me back to me. Those things will bring me back to, oh yeah, this is who I am. People who know you and know your heart and understand you. When those people interact with you, communicate with you, for me, that's been the kind of thing that brings me back to me. Secondly, for me, it's my faith. I did this because I was driven by my faith to do it. And so I literally have a scripture that's a guiding light for me. And that scripture is, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but consider others more than you consider yourself. Now, that is the opposite of what is done in politics. It's the opposite of what you're supposed to do in politics. In fact, it's the opposite of what you're supposed to do in a lot of spaces in order to get ahead. But I try so hard to remember that I got into this and started something different because all the other things, we had enough of the other things in the world, and they were not getting us to where we need to get to. So if you say you want to see different, you've got to be different. And so that essence, and for me, that essence has been given to me by my faith. By somebody else, for somebody else, it could be something else. But for me, that essence of, we're trying to do different, trying to create different, trying to have a different outcome. So if you want to see different, do different, you've got to be different. So that's those are the things that keep me. It's not always easy. And I sometimes have lost my way. And I have to come back. And those are the things that bring me back when I'm starting to see that, I don't recognize this person anymore. Those are the things that bring me back to myself.
Oh, thank you so much. And it's for this very reason where I will never accept the narrative that women hate each other. Please, if there's ever a discussion that happens and somebody says that, please know that I've exited stage left. I refuse to accept that. And I always say my most romantic and my most authentic relationships have been with other women. Hurt is hurt, regardless of gender, but my biggest growth has been in the light of other women. And I will never accept a narrative that speaks anything other than that. So thank you for sharing that. Sis Notukela, what brings you back to yourself in the midst of the craziness?
First of all, it's God. And you know, in the storm that is a campaign trail, and a campaign season, trying to win elections, because it's a storm. You are faced with so much. And you see so much. In every political program, you are put into a space that you are not used to. And you see so much suffering. So you have to carry all of that with you. And as that finishes, the announcements of the results. For me, it was a storm. I mean, I don't know why God would want me to put up my hand for the storm. And in trying to find the calm, my faith was very important. Lydia is on this call. She's the one she's my disability motor coach and a dear friend of mine. And she really represents those women that Nobuntu alluded to just now. Having an ecosystem of women who know who you are will help you to unpack the layers that exist, that have been caused by the storm. She's the one who had to remind me, girl, who are you? Are you still spending time with God? Are you waking up and praying every morning? So I'm super grateful for her. She truly is that a valuable place that a woman plays in your life. The importance of having a tribe. People who don't only belong within the political sphere, it could also be in your faith, it could also be in your career or whatever. You must surround yourself with people and voices that you can listen to, because not only do they encourage you, but they'll also challenge you. They'll fetch you, they'll bring you back to yourself, you know. Apart from having the tribe and having my faith, what I've also found is that within yourself, you have to have a moral compass that tells you which way you should go. When we were doing Futurelect, we called it our true north. Can I tell you the value of having that moral compass? Because things will happen and you will react and you will want to respond in a certain way. It's important to then just tap into that moral compass that will tell you who you are and how best you ought to. And trusting your intuition. A lot of the time our intuition will guide us what we ought to do. And sometimes it's not the popular thing to do, but we have to trust it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think the one thing, and I'm so glad you both mentioned the campaign trail, because it is such a crazy space. And it is such a crazy time that one day can feel like a week. And I'm sure it was similar to you guys when we started. I think it was a month before the actual elections. I was on a 4x4 schedule. I was doing 4 community engagements on 4 consecutive days. And by the time it was the month leading up to the elections, we were on a 6x6, and the last 2 weeks, an 8x8, which is 8 engagements a day for like consecutive days, the entire week, basically. So when you speak about the pressures of the campaign trail, the number of things and being able to lose yourself, it is so true. And I'm really hoping that we can open that fourth wall for the people that are on this call to also just give insights into what does a campaign look like? What does a single day look like? But I think the one thing that I took for myself was to be able to take the people that I loved with me on the journey. And with the madness, it becomes very tempting to come back home, exhausted, sleep, not talk. But somebody said the campaign is the campaign, elections are elections. Who will you go back home to? So for me, that was extremely important. It was something that I had to remember. And it's not to say that I did justice consistently. There are absolutely times where I felt I wasn't being a bad mom, where I wasn't available for my partner, where I missed all of my immediate family's birthdays. I missed my mother's, my sister's. I was away for my birthday, and I'm a huge birthday person. So there are things that we definitely sacrifice, and I'm hoping that we can also speak about that later on. But let us jump into the comments and involve our greater ecosystem. There are some gems that I have been reading through right now. Question for the speakers: what would be the advice that you give to your 23-year-old self? Just graduated, working towards a master's, occupying different spaces in civil society, politics, trying to build up your career. Sis Notukela, what are you saying to your 23-year-old self? Having seen what you've seen, having lived through what you've lived, what would be the advice that you would give to your 23-year-old self?
I know. In my mind, I'm still 21. I'm not there yet. Okay, I've just arrived.
What is something that you wished your younger self knew that you know now that would definitely saved you a couple of tears?
May I please come back to that?
Absolutely. Is this Nobuntu? 23-year-old self?
Yeah, I'll respond to this, and I won't respond to my 23-year-old self because my 23-year-old self was in quite a different place to where Tsegofatso is. Tsegofatso is saying a 23-year-old that's just graduated, working towards a master's, occupying different spaces in civil society and politics, trying to build up your career. What I would say to you is that this has got to be more than a career. This has to be a calling. The only thing that would keep you in this, whether it's in civil society or in politics, the only thing that will keep you in it is because it resonates with your true north. It's not, there's nothing in this path that is rewarding enough, for instance, financially, or like it's really, really not glamorous. So there's nothing that is financially rewarding enough. Yeah, the reward has got to be impact. The reward has got to be fulfilling something that within you just is restless about the world and about the world, the way the world is, and your own contribution to it, no matter what that looks like, whether it's as a bureaucrat, whether it's as, a public leader, whether it's in civil society, whatever it is, it's got to be that, the ambition that drives it is really just significance and impact and contribution to society. It's got to be that, because you're not going to get rich doing this. And you're not going to get much rest doing this. All those things that are a luxury in life are not time. People say time is a luxury. People say time with your loved ones is a luxury. People say money is a luxury. All those things, you're not going to get them here. So, you have to know that it's a calling. You have to be committed to making an impact and making a difference. That's really what I'd say. Feed that. And the rest will follow. The rest will follow.
Yeah. On my end, I would say yes more often. We are always the people that stand in our own way. You get an opportunity to speak somewhere, you get an opportunity to add your input into something, shape it, start it, and we talk ourselves out of it. So, as often as you can, say yes. Don't dim what you're good at to make other people feel better. Would be my second one. There are things that we are individually innately good in. Find that thing for yourself so that even when you're not in rooms, people talk about that thing. Politics happens, politics is constantly changing, the world is constantly changing, but still have that one thing that remains true to you, your brand, whether it is a skill, whether it is, and harness that so that regardless of the changes, you still have that to always fall back onto and always be known for. So say yes and find something you're really good at and become the best at it. Let's go back to you, Sis Notukela.
I think I would tell my 23-year-old who was really Unolali, coming from the Eastern Cape, having traveled out of the country for the first time, being in a space where I come from a place where Black people are predominantly the occupants, and then you are existing in the space where in Stellenbosch you are the minority, which is weird in our country. I would tell that Notukela that you are enough. That what you have to contribute is enough. And don't doubt yourself. You're enough.
Beautiful. We have questions for both of you from Lebohang. Sis Nobuntu, what policy changes would you like to see to address gender inequality? And then for you, Sis Notukela, to start pondering on it, how do you think disability representation in politics can shape policy and decision making? Sis Nobuntu?
So there are a number of policy changes I'd like to see to address gender inequality. I'll only speak to one because I'd be here for a long time. In the 2021 elections, representation of women, the local elections, dropped by 4%. In these elections, we had, if I'm not mistaken, 41% of the candidates in the 2024 elections in South Africa were women. But yet we had 56% of the people who had registered for elections being women. So you have more women who are registered for elections, more women who vote, but our representation is low. On the ballot paper that we had, only 6 of the 52 candidates on your ballot paper were women. Only 6. There's something wrong there. There's something that isn't right. So one of the policy changes I'd make, and especially in terms of legislation, is legislating the representation of women in political parties. Because the quota system has its own challenges, and sometimes the outcomes, are distorted in terms of what you'd want to see, but it's a start. It's how we started to see transformation in terms of race, in leadership and in the economy. So it's a place to start. I would have legislation, and I am actually working towards that because it is a recommendation of the Commission for Gender Equality that was presented to Parliament last year, something to pick up on. We need to have it legislated. We need to have the representation of women legislated in party politics for the lists that are presented for elections. That is my number one.
Thank you so much, Sis Notukela.
I love that question. How I think representation of disability would help policymaking. I want maybe to expand it to the many things, the many technological advances that we enjoy today are because of disability. When you bring disability into focus, you are forced to innovate, to think beyond what is. And my challenge is always making people understand that when it's not a charity move, it's not a feel-good thing when you bring disability into focus, because it's not only to the advantage of persons with disabilities, but to the entire community. Simple things like a lot of the accessibility features that we have on our phones, the VNs that we use, and they are so easy for us to use, but all of them happened because someone had disability in mind. So it forces you to innovate. Disability has forced me to think out of the box, to find an alternative way to do things.
Yeah.
And this is the value that disability brings within institutions, whether you're talking about inclusion in the workspace, in communities, and even in parliament. A lot of the laws were not designed with women in mind. A lot of our policies and regulations were not designed with persons with disabilities in mind. And when we can shift our focus to that, we will all benefit, because it will just help us to expand them a lot more. I want to touch on something like protected work, or leave protected work, something like having our universal income grant in South Africa. It's something that we've been fighting for as persons with disability, as well as the civil society, for the longest time. But this is not only for persons with disabilities. Everyone who is poor in South Africa would be able to get that income grant, the universal income grant, and then that will go back into our economy. And our economy would do so much better because there's just more activity happening, and people's quality of life would be raised, and chronic poverty would be completely eliminated. So I keep thinking that the day I acquired disability was a hard day, but it was really my superpower, because it forces me to constantly get out of the box. And that's the advantage and the value that I would say it will bring to light.
Thank you so much. And the ripple effect of that is that it forces everybody else to start thinking outside of the box, and having different conversations. So siyabonga kakhulu for that. Simamgele says, been listening very attentively as a young man who is a feminist. I am really learning here. Glad I made time to join. Thank you so much, Simamgele. Riabetsa, I think she was responding to your comment, says Nobuntu. I love that. The reward has to be the impact. I think ubukhuluma ngokuthi akho mali la. So you really must have.
Akho mali unless you're corrupt. And I know that at Futurelect, what we are about is ethical leaders. So
please, we're not about any of that.
At the results.
So truly, truly do love what you do consistently and revive that passion every single time. Let me see. There was one that I really wanted to throw at both of you guys. I'm trying to find it right now. We have working at the forefront, be your truth, cream rises to the top. Please, Usis Nobuntu and Usis Notukela are dropping nuggets for social media here. So can't wait at what the social media team is going to do with this. I can't find it here, but these elections this year has brought about a new political landscape. New conversations are needing to be held. We are seeing a lot more collaboration come through. And there is endless opportunities, if we're being quite honest. In your sense, from what you've seen, from what you've heard, whether it is within your party, whether it is outside of your party, what is the opportunity that currently exists for women in politics right now, or women wanting to enter politics right now? With all of the changes that have happened, what are the opportunities that exist for women who want to enter politics, or women who are currently in politics and being able to contribute in the current conversations that are happening? So Nobuntu, let's start with you.
Sure, I love that question. The political landscape has changed, and I think what's changed, the significant change, is that collaboration is now at the forefront, and collaboration is actually a feminine leadership trait. So it is such an opportune time for women to lead in their femininity, because that's something that in terms of our own makeup, it's something that actually comes easily to women, which is why Nonkululeko was saying that she always disagrees that women hate each other and don't support each other. And like I said, I've had the experience of women backing me, women supporting me, women being there for me. But I think now we have to take it a notch further and collaborate a bit more, and actually lead that narrative of collaboration, lead that spirit of collaboration. I still maintain that I struggle with the fact that with 56% of women registered to vote, we don't have a female president, we don't have a female deputy president. So for me, the question becomes, how do we unite and collaborate to make that happen? Even beyond political lines, even across political lines. I mean, one of the things with many of the women, so with some of the women leaders at Rise and Mzansi and at Action SA, we have been very clear, unapologetically, that we back each other. Like it's just a thing. We've said to each other, we back each other, we support each other, we shout if you need help, shout if you need something, and we cheer for each other, and we're there for each other. And I think now, given that it's now, and that's something we were doing and saying before the elections. Now the elections have made it quite normal, but we've got to be able to say, if that is who we are, how do we leverage that? If that is who we are, how do we leverage that? How do we leverage that for women, for gender non-binary persons, for society as a whole? How do we leverage that? How do we leverage that spirit of collaboration that is now suddenly welcome? And now suddenly there won't be as many eyebrows when you do it. How do we then leverage that and make it work for us? I think that's the opportunity. And I'm insistent on the fact that the only way we will get to have women, leading right to the top, is if we collaborate and as if we unite cross-party lines, across racial lines, across all of that. When you think of the women of 1956, what they did, and I think for me, that's what was behind the South African Women's Commission. What they did, those women marched to the union buildings for an agenda that would benefit women, for an agenda that would benefit society in South Africa as a whole. They were there from different political parties. They were there across races. They were there across classes. And that's what they did. And that led to many things that then advanced the struggle for freedom in this country, having started just like that. So for me, the opportunity is to collaborate. It is a moment of collaboration. Nobody's raising eyebrows at that, and we've got to do it.
Yes, I think that's one thing that has definitely changed. I remember when we were campaigning, I'd take pictures with women from across the other political parties, and I would hear people in the background, and it was such a weird It was such a weird conversation for me. So absolutely leverage, absolutely collaboration. And it is true. We are speaking about it even in the Futurelect seminars about collaboration across party lines, and we had never seen it. And it was very clear that the people who would start doing it would always be women. And I'm so glad that this is the opportunity that exists for us to do it openly and redefine people's relationships with party politics as well. So thank you for that one, Sis Nobuntu. Sis Notukela?
The opportunities that I recognize right now is the power of intersection. I mentioned earlier on that you may have to make sure that your interests converge. And if we leverage from the power of intersection, whether you are a woman or a person with disability, a male, or a gender non-binary, that intersection is powerful, because not only are women the majority of voters in South Africa, the majority of the South African population, but if we can then use that our intersection to leverage off, there is power in numbers. And then the we that we stand up and represent is so much bigger that it really makes no sense to continue to say we are in a male-dominated space. It becomes a previously male-dominated space, but we have to be intentional about making it a previously male-dominated space and changing the culture. The other opportunity that I see for women where we are at is really how do I say this now? We are in a space in South Africa where, well, in the world actually, where women have opportunities to rise to the top. No one to say the cream. But what do you do when you're at the top?
Yes.
To really increase our impact is really, because when you're at the top, we claim it's lonely at the top, and we tend to do things that are no longer accountable to our constituency. But when you do rise to the top, how do you remain true to your truth, and how do you remain that change maker?
Yeah.
Don't leave things the way you found them. Change them for the next generation. That's the big opportunity that we have as we are pushing for gender parity and inclusion and diversity. It's really being impactful in our spaces.
Impactful in our spaces, in your individual corners, always knowing that you have the ability to change the situation. Thank you so much for that, Gem. So we are 5 minutes away from our live ending. I knew an hour and a half would be very little. But thank God, because this is the first of many conversations we are going to have. I did mention at the beginning of the webinar that there is a ticket that is going to be given away as a prize. And I had if I had a drum, I'd be doing a whole drum roll now. We have gotten our winner, and it is Lemonkomo. Lemonkomo, you are the winner of the Singularity U South Africa Summit ticket to the value of 4,000 Rand that was given to us by Old Mutual. Thank you so much to Old Mutual for the sponsor. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you tag us. I hope you take pictures. If there aren't pictures, it didn't happen. So please, Lemo, do the right thing. Just as parting shots, I know there are many people who have their questions written down, didn't get an answer for them. I really do hope you're able to note them down and even in your individual platforms to begin to answer them. Just write a name and the question and begin to do that in your own spaces. But for people who want to follow you on social media, where can they find you? Who are you on social media, and how do they keep up with what you're doing in your individual spaces? So Nobuntu, where do people find you?
If you can allow me 1 minute to just answer something that was in
Yes,
the chat that I think is so important
absolutely.
before I say my social media handles. I love the question that came through from Simamgele about what can young men do. And it's not even about young men, it's about men,
Yeah.
just in general. I'm fortunate to, lead with a man. And I'm so glad there's people from my party on this call. And I lead authentically and genuinely and fully, like we co-lead. There's no sense of tokenism or anything like that. So that's the first thing that men can do, because they are in the room, because the system has given them that privilege of being in the room, is to share privilege. And to genuinely share and use that privilege. That's the first, in whatever way you can share the privilege. The second is, particularly with older men, who, well, the economy has advantaged and given privilege to men as well. So, use whatever privilege. It's not only about spaces, but it's also even about money. Being in politics, back a candidate, back a female candidate. There's so much that men can do to genuinely be allies, in the space. So that's what I'd say. And then as a parting shot, I would say that, there's three things that you need in politics, and we've got them as women. The one is community. I spoke about that. Women do community well, and we've got community. The second is capital. And I always make an example and say that we grew up with women in Africa who did stokvels and could save money and pool money together. And so you are able to, even in your community, decide this is a candidate that we want to back. And one day as women, when we decide even we want to back a female president, we can do it. Pool your capital. However little it looks, if we put it all together, we can do it. And that's how we can start advancing women leadership. The third one is constituency. As Notukela said, women, we have the numbers. And so we have the constituency. And if we have not only women, but we have everyone else in society, then we've got even more. So we've got all the 3 C's as women. There's nothing stopping anybody who's a woman from advancing in politics and advancing in leadership. That's it from me. We've got it all. We have it. We just need to unite, and we need to leverage on the things that we have. I am Nobuntu SA on all the platforms, at Nobuntu SA.
Thank you so much. Sis Notukela, where do people find you? Where do the people probe you? How do we follow your incredible work?
I am pretty much everywhere. My personal website is notukela.com. My foundation is the nfi.org. It's Notukela Makohliso on Facebook. Notukela Makohliso on Twitter. There's Lady Tuxi on IG and another Twitter account, and they're all active. So I'm pretty much everywhere. It's impossible not to get a hold of me. I am there.
Thank you so
And I
much.
love your question, Simamgele, because I'm a mother of boys. So I'm very intentional about making sure that my kids know that as supporters of women, we speak well of them in rooms where they are not even there. We empower women whether they're looking or not. So my boys are clear about what their purpose is, in as far as the struggle of gender movement. They are active participants. They are not just there to watch. It is their duty to change the status quo.
Yeah. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. We have come to the end of our Women's Month webinar titled Her Story, Women Leading Change in Politics and Public Service. Thank you so much to the women who joined us today as our guest speakers, Sis Nobuntu, Sis Notukela. Thank you for agreeing to participate in the webinar tonight, but thank you so much for your sacrifice, for the work that you do. Please thank your families for me. I know that all of this sacrifice also includes a bit of time taken away from them. So please know that we are truly grateful. Thank you so much to Futurelect for constantly creating spaces where young people, change drivers, change agents can meet up and talk about the issues that affect them, but most importantly, talk about the solutions. Thank you so much to Old Mutual for the prize that we were able to give away. Congratulations again to the winner. I hope you will have a beautiful evening. Thank you to everyone who joined us this evening. Once more, my name is Nonkululeko Hlongwane-Mhlongo. I hope you remain blessed and good night. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.